Greetings and welcome to the Fiatech Technology Tuesday meeting. Thank you for joining us today, but before we get started, I'd like to review how to use the GoToWebinar system in order to optimize your experience today. You've all been put on default mute settings due to lots of participants on the call. You're encouraged to please forward any questions that come up during the webinar using the Questions tab. Questions may be read anonymously if you so wish at the end. We will also have a session within the presentation. We'll do some live polling. You are able to answer from your screen by clicking on the choices provided. Use the orange arrow button to minimize the control panel. You can also move around the webinar interface on the screen. Thank you, and we will now start the presentation. I'm Stuart Young. I represent Fiatech in Europe and the Middle East. I have 30 years in the construction industry, from coal-faced head office to coal-face, mostly involved in infrastructure projects, a few commercial buildings. I have a passion for change in the industry and improving efficiency of working practice. On behalf of all of us at Fiatech, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the latest Technology Tuesday webinar. Today's presenter is Sandeep Jain from Enable My Team. Sandeep will present on the development and implementation of this project. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to take a minute or two to introduce Fiatech and Comet to those who are not members of Fiatech or Comet and those who are new to the Tech Tuesday webinars. I will introduce the other partners in the project in the next few slides. For those who are not familiar with CII research, I just want to clarify Fiatech's relationship with CII. The Construction Industry Institute was formed back in 2000 with the purpose of advancing breakthrough research related to automation of processes in construction. Since then, Fiatech projects have focused on researching upcoming processes enabled through new and emerging technologies that will improve and enhance project performance. Fiatech is a member-based organisation with the objective of accelerating the deployment of technology in the capital projects industry. There are nearly 100 member organisations, partners, and participants from the world of owners, operators, EPCs, AECs, vendors, academia, and subject matter experts. We welcome others to become members and participate in all our activities. The Fiatech goal is to lead global development and adoption of innovative practice. I'll now introduce Comet. Comet has been in operation for 11 years. It started as an initial DTI project. A number of the members and people running the community have been with us since the beginning. Comet is an acronym that stands for Construction Opportunities for Mobile IT. It is UK based and its aim is to learn from experience to deliver measurable business benefit. The objectives of Comet are well aligned with the objectives of the community of interest, which Fiatech participates in on a monthly basis. Please take a look at that. They focus on research on construction technologies and dissemination of findings to improve performance in the industry. Examples of some of the recent projects, current projects, past projects are listed on this slide. Costain is one of the partners in this project. Costain is one of the UK's leading engineering solutions providers. It dates back to 1865, was involved in the war effort, first UK contractor to win the Queen's Award for Export Achievement in 1971, was a founding member of the Channel Tunnel joint venture. Costain's strategic focus is to enhance growth and market position by providing innovative and sustainable solutions to complex and large-scale multinational needs. One other thing I should say about Costain, it was a SETI award winner for intelligent self-maintaining, repairing operational facilities, one of the elements within Fiatech for the self-healing concrete. The other organisation in this project is the Technology Strategy Board. TSB has been providing funding and support for a number of projects in the past, including this one. The project was originally bid in 2013. It's an 18-month project that commenced in May 2013. And as Ian Gray, the Chief Executive of the Technology Strategy Board, said, the market for cloud computing is growing by an increasing amount each year. It is an area with exceptional potential for growth. Finding the correct balance between trust and flexibility without compromising security is vital. Through this support, we aim to help UK suppliers of cloud infrastructure and outsourced IT services to work together on the challenges that are holding back the adoption of cloud computing in order to capture a bigger share of this expanding market. Now we'll move towards the main presentation. As I mentioned before, we have Sandeep as our speaker. Sandeep is the founder of MobiBiz and the lead project manager for Enable My Team. He is a computer engineer by training. Sandeep has almost 15 years experience in finance, telecoms and construction sectors, ranging from Silicon Valley startups to blue chip multinationals. Sandeep has been involved in Comet on various projects for the past 5 years, with innovations in mobility and cloud computing. Having started on mobility applications on devices for the construction industry, Sandeep's new focus area has been on mobility of data, data analytics and enterprise application integration. We will have a questions and answers session at the end, but at this moment I'll pass over to Sandeep. Okay, Sandeep, it's all yours.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you. Stuart, can you pass me the control, please? Okay, I think that's fine. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to people in Europe. Stuart's given a brilliant introduction, so I'll go over what we're going to talk about today. So I'll start off with the problem we are trying to solve here as part of this project. And then I'll go into some new and proven methods used to track the entire asset lifecycle. And then as part of our project, Enable My Team, we're demonstrating a technology on 2 cross-trade contracts. So I'll talk a bit about that and what we're doing there, what use case we're addressing. And then I'll briefly go into the project handover, which is essentially the end goal, to make information available during the operations and maintenance phase of an asset. So I'll talk a bit briefly about that as well. Okay, so let's talk about the problem and why did we choose to do what we're doing for this project. Now what is BIM? BIM is essentially a process that involves creating and using intelligent 3D models to inform and communicate project decisions. It's a collaborative way of working. It's underpinned by a number of technologies and a lot of vendors that are in the market today. And these vendors, these technologies, they unlock more efficient methods of designing, creating, and maintaining assets. So the problem here is that due to the complex nature of our supply chain in our industry, including resistance to pursuing BIM-related technologies unless it's specified in the contract, or pursuing new technology initiatives, BIM is often confined to the designers and primary contractors. So the BIM models and collaboration and its associated benefits, they don't often propagate all the way down to the supply chain to tier 1, 2, or 3 subcontractors. And essentially the primary reason for this is lack of cost-effective collaboration across the entire supply chain. Now, due to this lack of collaboration, we end up with an information gap, which essentially results in lack of visibility into the asset lifecycle. And what happens when there's low collaboration? When there's lack of collaboration, that leads to low innovation as well, because there's less sharing of ideas and then less productivity. So essentially, collaboration is essentially the big problem that we're trying to address. So let's talk about the supply chain network. Now, construction supply chain is immensely complex. You've got traditionally contractors have been reluctant to share information about their suppliers. Your traditional ERP systems normally they only have one-off relationship in the relation database, a connection. So what that means is that it's only a unidirectional relationship, a hierarchical relationship, if you will, between the supply chain and the contractor. So as part of this project, what we're trying to do is borrow some ideas from social networking and hopefully apply them to the supply chain wherever possible. Trying to create a social graph, depict everything, all sort of linkages between the supply chain, between the buyers and the suppliers. So with increased sharing and increased communication, better communication, that will result in better collaboration as well. And that's the idea behind this. Okay, so now let's talk about this. So the end goal for this supply chain network and simplifying it and converting into a bidirectional relationship, a true network, is to address questions like this. Is basically, if you've got a complex supply chain, you ought to be able to tell where an asset or material comes from. Stuart, I don't seem to have control over the mouse. Okay, so Stuart, do you want to control the mouse? Yeah, I'll tell you when to go next and back.
You carry on. You carry on.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The end goal is to essentially say, okay, if I have a product and a complex supply chain, can I just type what product I have and then draw out or map out the entire supply chain involved in getting to that product? So where the parts came from, who were the subcontractors involved in building that product. Can you go next to it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next again. Okay, so let's talk about asset information for a minute. Now, what is asset information? Is it just a design information of an asset, or a definition of that asset? Really, asset information includes any documentation related to an asset. It could be certification information, servicing guide. It could be decommissioning guide. It could be an O&M manual. It can be an order that's associated with an asset. When the asset is delivered, where it is right now, installation history of an asset, maintenance schedule, where the asset is located right now physically and also in a 3D model. So that's all basically information on an asset. That's all asset information. And that's what we're trying to track. Next slide, Stuart. Thank you. So if you look at your traditional ERP system, supply chain management system, if you will, it'll have a number of modules. You'll have supply chain planning, sourcing, procurement, execution. You'll have a lot of information in there. But the problem is that these systems normally are in silos. They don't communicate or integrate very well. They are not open. So your supply chain will normally not have access to this information. There are a lot of reasons that are given, obviously security is one of them. But the problem is that these are closed systems. So what we are trying to do as part of this project is to sort of integrate these systems with Enable My Team, which is a cloud-based system, so that we can increase visibility and derive more intelligence out of the data that is within these closed systems. Put the data to use to work. Next slide, Stuart. And then obviously, obviously the big benefit is not just connecting with these with one system, is connecting with many other systems as well. That could be the BIM system and your project management system. So collectively you pool all the data and then you get the data to give you insight, to give you one single view of information to the entire supply chain. Next slide, please. Thank you. So that's essentially now in construction projects normally have a lot of stakeholders. Now, in a typical construction project, you'll have a designer, contractor, a supplier, you will have logistics, and then you'll obviously have the end client. So what I'm trying to show is essentially that at each and every point, at each and every stage, information on an asset is contributed to by different parties. So next slide, Stuart. Next. Okay, so a designer would normally assign design attributes to, let's say, rebar or concrete grade strength, and then this information is passed on from the 3D model onto the supplier. Next, please. And then obviously your supplier is going to contribute information on M&E assets. It could be your certificates, your steel grade strength information, your plant information if it's an architectural glass. Your logistics is going to contribute information on when the asset is will be delivered on site and where the asset is right now, the delivery ticket information. On site, this information is needed by operatives to know when to install and when the assets are on site. Finally, the contractor has to manage all of this and make sure that everything is delivered on time and in a sustainable fashion. Stuart, next slide. Next. Okay, so once this information is handed over to the client, it doesn't end there. You've got handover. And that's basically the biggest stage. All this information needs to be handed over to who's going to maintain this. Next slide. So these are the questions that need to be answered when during maintenance time. Where a piece of where an asset came from? Where is the OEM manual for this? What's the carbon rating or the recyclability of the structure? So these questions, so think of asset information as a live, living thing. It's not static. It doesn't end at any point. As long as the asset is alive, as long as the asset is being serviced, this information is always contributed to. So that's essentially what happens in most construction contracts right now is the handover phase starts quite late. So it normally starts during the beginning of the commissioning stage, and then there's normally a mad rush to collect all the information, all the documentation for these assets, and then hand them over to the maintenance party. And what happens is this results in late poor quality handover. And so what Crossrail is trying to do, and what we're trying to do with Crossrail is essentially trying to work on this from the very beginning, trying to collect information from the very start, hopefully from the manufacture point time itself, and then making it easy to collect all this information on time and obviously good quality. And we're taking this one step further, essentially, and that's my next slide. So yeah, one thing I wanted to mention was asset information during the design phase is only 10 to 20% of the data that is ever associated with an asset. So the rest of the information is actually, most of the information actually is used in the operations and maintenance phase. So essentially, the handover is extremely, extremely important. So what we're trying to do is obviously start from the very beginning, start at an early stage on collecting this information, but do it in a collaborative way. So have the supply chain contribute this information, which makes it easier because there are so many different things that need to be collected. So wouldn't it be nice if everyone plays their part and contributes this information rather than one person or one stakeholder collecting it? So that improves the efficiency, it reduces work for everyone as well. At this point, we divided this webinar into 4 questions. So at this point, I would like to ask a question: is if you experienced in your construction projects asset labeling, at what point are the physical labels applied onto the assets? Are they applied at manufacture time, or are they done at the when the assets arrive at the consolidation center, or when they're delivered on site? Or are they done during the commission right before handover? See, that's very interesting. Now, 23% saying manufacture time, which is quite good. But again, you got 36%, which is right before handover, or even 27%, that is when delivered on site. So that's a lot of work for essentially one stakeholder. So okay, then we've got another question. The next question is: are assets virtually labeled virtually in the design and also physically in your construction projects? So the question is, what's in your design? Is it actually physically? How accurate is your design? Okay, interesting. Thank you. Okay, so so I'll talk a bit about what Crossrail is trying to do. Essentially, so we're doing 2 demonstrations with Crossrail projects. One is at Paddington, and the other one is the system-wide project. So, Stuart, next slide, please.
Okay.
So what Crossrail is trying to do is deliver 2 things. One is obviously your physical world, and then it's your virtual world as well. So they are starting off, they're going to deliver documentation on every asset, which will be linked to obviously the asset itself and the labels on the asset, which will essentially be linked to the BIM model. And that BIM model will in turn be linked to a GIS model, a spatial representation. And then that will be linked to any sort of visualization, a high-level visualization as well. So essentially, they're trying to deliver an accurate representation of the physical world in the virtual world. Now, these are essentially British standards. BS 1192, I believe, it's a British standard that establishes methodology for managing the production, distribution, and quality of construction information. That includes information generated by CAD systems. And PAS 1192, it focuses on project delivery. Where basically the majority of graphical data and non-graphical data and documents is collectively known as project information model. So these are sort of two standards that are being looked at, and as part of Enable My Team, we are looking at these two models as well when we are developing our asset information APIs. The reason I have this slide is if anyone hasn't checked these standards out, I suggest Googling them and looking at them. They're very useful. So I'll basically talk about a little bit about the Enable My Team architecture and why we're doing things the way we're doing. So I mentioned siloed approach before, where systems are closed. They don't integrate very well. They've got a lot of data, and sometimes it's very useful, but it's not useful if it's not shared. And that's normally called the walled garden approach. And what we're trying to get away from, that and move into something like the next slide, which is essentially this information being captured in the cloud. And next slide, Stuart. So think of this. This is a very high-level view of Enable My Team as it's being used on Crossrail projects. We've integrated with the BIM system from Bentley at Crossrail. We've integrated with supplier systems. In many cases, it's a manufacturer system. And then we'll integrate with that's something that we need to do yet, but it's some sort of operator system. And then it's all about reporting, and so I'll talk about handover in a minute. But with all the information that we have in the cloud, we hope to produce COBE compliant handover package as well. So obviously the end goal, as I mentioned, was utilizing this asset information effectively during the operations and maintenance phase. Now, if you and this sort of diagram kind of represents the high-level vision from a technical point of view. If you look on the left side, you've got sources, you've got existing ERP and project management systems, and then you've also got emerging sources. You've got things like asset information automatically coming from sensors, or other formats that are not possible right now. So the technology that we are using in our system is obviously big data technology, and the reason is big data lends itself very well to integration. It's because it can handle data formats that couldn't be handled before. So normally the information that need to be integrated need to be normalized. So it needed to have a certain structure. So with big data, we can absorb a lot of information from different formats, and they can be unstructured as well, which really helps a lot. And then one of the main components, as you can see, is a canonical format. So and then there's a classification engine. So what the classification engine does is it uses classification standards that we have, and it sort of tries to derive intelligence out of the data. And what asset canonical format is essentially our internal language, if you will. It's sort of how very loose, very flexible asset representation. So it obviously depends on the type of asset, and we are following Uniglass standard, and there are other standards that are being developed here in the UK as well. So we are loosely based on that format, and so we call it canonical is because a canonical format helps us integrate from one system to the other. So once this information is in our big data environment, we expose this information using our asset information API, which can then be used to perform real-time searches, to do analytics, advanced and basic, to integrate with CMMS systems or other handover systems. So from a maintenance point of view, there are a lot of benefits to this approach, meaning using sort of system, one system for during the construction and maintenance. You've got increased system availability. So if you've got a system that is deployed on site, so there's something called predictive maintenance to find out what's going to fail before it fails. So things like that are possible if you've got information coming in on time, or if you're able to do something about it anyways. There are a lot of advantages for the contractor as well. You've obviously got customer service improvements, you've got intelligent asset management, and obviously you've got the new work that can be won in case it's things like public sector work. So now this slide, this is not very, it's quite small, but I'll go through this in some detail. So how do we connect with the supply chain? Now, obviously, supply chain has different capabilities. Some of the supply chain partners are going to be quite sophisticated. They're going to have systems like SAP or maybe even Oracle, EDI. So then for these sophisticated supply chain partners, we've got system-to-system integration, EDI, EAI, or ISO standards. These systems, these integrations are high in cost and high in sophistication. But for supply chain partners who are on the medium scale, don't have these big systems but have some capability, they can use our asset information API. They can use our ready-made clients to do some small amount of work and achieve the same result. For the majority of supply chain partners that we've noticed, they work with just Excel and CSV based integration. So for those kinds of partners, we can just work with Excel and file-based systems. And then finally, for the lowest common denominator is essentially our web portal. So any supply chain partner can go to our secure web-based portal and collaborate using that. And so I was talking about our asset information API, and essentially using that API, we integrate with other asset management databases. You've obviously got BIM system across integrating with. It could be tag information. Obviously, you've got your RFID tags that can communicate directly with the cloud. You've got mobile apps that can capture information and put it directly into the cloud. So again, they all use our asset management API for that. And finally, you've got asset maintenance systems and COBE, which is also essentially exported based on our API as well. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing at the different Crossrail sites. So this is Paddington Station, and so the three things that we're doing at Paddington. So can you next? So the first thing we are focusing on is asset information collection. Paddington is essentially Costain Skanska JV. One of the things that we're helping them do is collect asset information for meeting Crossrail's minimum requirement. The way we collect information is validated and is compliant with Crossrail standards, and it's obviously better in quality as well. And we've enabled BS 1192 workflow, so obviously there's a lot of collaboration going on. They've got supply chain contributing information directly on assets. So all this all this has to fit into a workflow, which is essentially an industry standard, BS 1192, where information is where we can enable change sets that are validated and improved before any sort of information is published. What this enables is complete audit of information at every stage. So this is a simple sort of a process map of what it looks like. So you've got CSJV suppliers contributing asset information. It could be information that is required by Crossrail, or it could be information that might be extra, that might be useful for the contract, but not for Crossrail. And then that basically flows down in as change sets, which are then approved, and then that information is integrated back into the Crossrail database. You can enable custom workflows on this information. So there are a number of things that we are doing for that are essentially go beyond what Crossrail requires, but that help in improving the process efficiency. There's a lot of analytics reports that you can drive from this information, and hopefully we can extract some intelligence out of this data so that can improve and add value further. So one of the things that we've really focused on is super fast search and discovery of information. So you've got all this information coming into the cloud, and what we've really done is make sure that information can be searched on anything. So if you come in and use one of our APIs or use the web portal, you can search information based on asset types, names. It could be attributes. It could be even the contents of the attachments. So it's really easy to discover things. And then visualization. So visualization is quite important. So when you're searching something, how do you know where that asset belongs? And so visualization automatically derives relationships from the data and displays them as they are in the data, rather than hard coding them in some sort of database. So if your data has relationships, if your asset is located in two places, then that's a relationship that can be reflected in the visualization automatically. One of the things is one other type of visualization that we focused on for our web portal is for Paddington was a grid representation. The main reason was asset information needs to be updated in bulk. Next slide, Stuart. Thank you. So information, it's just like Excel, which is easy to sort of slice and dice. You can view information in a grid format, view it by types, view it by attributes or baselines, and baseline is something that I'll go into in a minute. Next slide, please. And then change sets. Obviously, as I mentioned, alluded to before, everything that you can have hundreds of thousands of them that need to be updated, and this makes it really easy to work with so many assets. Supply chain roles. So you can invite supply chain and then assign roles to them. The supply chain can be approvers or can be creators. So more roles can be created. So protection of data and who's able to view it and do actions on it, that's completely flexible. and can be managed from within the system itself. Now, one of the things that so every attribute, so every asset has attributes against it, and some of these attributes are obviously defined by the client, and so in this case, as you can see, Crossrail has defined these attributes, and they are in the system, and you can see an owner against them. And the reason it's important is because as a contractor, you can create your own attributes and assign, and then they'll be owned by you. And the reason it's important is because you can set permissions and other attributes against them, so that depending on who you want them to be viewed by, the Crossrail might not actually get that information, might not actually see that information because it's not relevant. Next slide, please. So groups and permissions, so that this is what I mentioned before. So, so you've got permissions here. This could be your own attribute, and you can specify exactly who's able to view, read, and update an asset. Then you've got baselines. So the whole point of a baseline is to sort of group attributes against the baseline, and baseline is something that can be tracked. So you can assign a time, a date against a baseline, and information can be tracked using a baseline. So you could say that this attribute belongs in this baseline and this is due by this date, and so then there can be automatic tracking of these baselines. And then obviously functions. So you can have validation functions and auto-populate functions, just like Excel, that allow easy auto-populate of data. So these are just basically some of the features that I demonstrated. And so at Crossrail system-wide, we are doing essentially similar things, but we are doing a lot more than just asset information collection. What we are also doing is M&E asset document tracking. Essentially, for M&E assets, there's a lot of documentation, O&M manuals and certificates that are required by suppliers at certain times. So we are tracking and making sure that they're submitted on time. Then we are also mapping the work packages that are part of the work schedule, and then mapping that to the supply chain to not only find out who's responsible when any sort of information is due, but also who's responsible for it. And then obviously, and then the last thing we're doing is automated asset information capture. So one of the use cases we looked at is directly integrate on-site data from mobiles into the cloud. This could be your delivery ticket sign-off on-site to some sort of snagging form that could have photographs attached to it that go straight into the cloud and gets associated with an asset. And again, it could be more sophisticated than that. It could be a sensor that could be supplying information on an asset directly. So, sure, can you go back to the previous slide, please? So work packages. So this is essentially one of the things that we're doing. I see at system-wide. Essentially, we mapping the project work packages with the client deliverable work package, and putting that in a baseline. And then we assign the delivery date, the baseline with the date, and also the suppliers that are responsible for it. And then once we've created that baseline, we can track information, what information is missing, when it's due, and who's responsible for it. So the next thing that we are doing is as I mentioned, M&E supply document tracking. So, so this is where custom attributes come into play. So you can create custom attributes for each document type against an asset. So for example, if you've got a O&M manual, you can create, let's say, an O&M attribute against your asset type, and so that, and then you can share it with just yourself and your one supplier, and it doesn't have to be shared by with anyone else. So what we then are able to do is quickly attach and upload documents against one or multiple assets. So obviously when you're talking about an O&M manual, it's probably going to be the same for all for the whole asset class. So rather than attaching it individually to each asset, it's very easy to attach it to all the assets within the class. And then we are able to assign, as I said, any attribute can be assigned a baseline and can be tracked. So we are able to assign attachment attributes to a baseline. Then we are able to track that submission based on deadlines, which is basically times, and also the submission format, whether this attachment was supposed to be a PDF and it's not, and things like that. And then finally, system-wide uses a document management system already called Aconex. So we are connecting directly with Aconex to fetch documents and track them. Analytics is essentially a powerful tool. So essentially, one of the things that we worked on really hard is data mining. So we present a very powerful data mining console to sort of analyze and do your own analysis on the data. So it's quite powerful. A role-based access for personalized dashboards. So depending on what you're able to see, you'll have the dashboard personalized for you. You've got a lot of reporting features here and a lot of sharing features. So you can do your reporting, search for things, generate your graphs, and then share them, share the whole interactive dashboard with your team. And then as part of your baselines, you've got alert notifications. Let's say we are able to track fill percentages against an attribute. So whether an attribute, let's say an attachment is complete, is it 100%? If it's not, then what assets are missing? So there is only 80% complete, and supplier A is responsible for it. So we are able to generate notifications like that on any sort of baseline. So finally, I think I've spent too much time on those previous slides. So this is essentially the handover bit, and the reason I want to show you this is essentially this bit. So I've talked about most of the system now. You've got third-party information coming in from devices directly. You've got BIM information and other sort of asset information coming. Now, with all this information, what we're trying to do is, with one click of a button, you are able to produce some sort of a COBie package, COBie compliant package, or if it could be a CMMS system, you're able to integrate with that directly. Finally, I think I've gone through most of these benefits. The main benefit I see is essentially improved visibility for the whole supply chain and a better closer working relationship. And I think on top you'll see innovations, and I think this is very relevant. I think with a closer working relationship, you tend to provide more innovations, more trust. So let's do another poll. We've got two more questions. Do you have a system in place for tracking, capturing, validating asset information directly from the supply chain? Okay. I think we've got one more question, Stuart. So how is asset information handed over to the operator of a project? So in your experience, how is this handover happening for your current projects or your past projects? Okay, so 55% is paper and electronic files, so that's very interesting. Okay, Stuart, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, I think so. That was all I wanted to present. Apologies for technical issues. I don't have control over the mouse and keyboard, so Stuart has to help me out. But if you have any questions, I'm sure you've. Stuart, do they just type in the questions?
Yeah, the questions are on the screen actually, Sandeep. I'm gonna start at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, what sort of process is Crossrail going to use by the end of the project, Sandeep?
Oh, you mean for handover?
Yes.
I'm assuming this is for handover.
Sorry, what sort of handover process is Crossrail going to use by the end of the project? Beg pardon.
Okay, well that's a good question. I think this is basically something that is still being worked out, I believe. They've already started collecting information from the asset information from a very early stage. But I believe there's Kobe is obviously one of the packages that is going to be used. But I think Crossrail is working with the operator partners and different other stakeholders. And it might be different for each sort of contract because Crossrail is divided into many contracts. So that's going to vary per contract. So that's due in 2018 and it's 2014 right now. So they've started quite a bit in advance. They've got 4 years. So that's something that's still being decided.
Okay, thanks for that. The next question I've got is, how do you see Enable My Team benefiting after the handover is done? What happens to the information?
Okay, that's a good question. So obviously, Enable My Team is going to assist in handover. Ideally, what I would like is something if information that is Enable My Team is just used and integrated directly into maintenance systems, and is done on a continuous basis because information never stops. So obviously, Enable My Team will potentially have links or have connections with sensors or with other asset supply databases. So this information will constantly update. So I see Enable My Team playing a vital role in terms of ongoing maintenance of assets as well. Not sure how it's going to work eventually, because normally what happens is after handover, the information is just handed over and it's given as a package and it's done. You know, then it's up to the operator and the systems they're using.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Next question I've got here. Interesting work. Is EPCIS integrated into your asset management system? Is there a logic to detect the missing information for specific assets during life cycle? And if so, how?
So if is there a way of detecting missing information in assets? So yeah, basically, so the way we do it right now, and I'm sure there might be alternative ways as well, is essentially, in case of Crossrail, there's an asset definition dictionary or some sort of definition of an asset. So we've got that as rules within our cloud. So we know when we import asset data, they're against that definition. So we know that what information we're expecting, what attributes we're expecting, so if there's a baseline that's created against any of those attributes and no information has been provided, then we can track that. So I guess the answer is we've got the definition of the asset, the attributes that it can possibly have as rules in our system.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Next question I've got here is if the handover strategies are differing per contract, how will these standard, stroke non-standard, and differing schemes be managed by Enable My Team?
That's a very good question, and that's absolutely what that's absolutely something that is very worrying to me as well, because the whole point of handover hopefully needs to be that there's some consistency. But if, as I said, this is still being worked out. But if it turns out that there are different types of handover packages being used for different contracts, then yeah, it's not the ideal situation. The way I see that working is I see Enable My Team being able to support every package. So at the end of the day, the information is there in Enable My Team, and it's accessible it can be accessible in many formats. So right now we're able to produce a COBie package by click of a button, because we know what a COBie package looks like. So we turn that information that we have into a COBie compliant package. So if there are other packages that are being used for handover, then we should be able to support that as well.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Does your system only integrate with Bentley BIM products, or does it connect with Autodesk as well?
Yes, that's a good question. We are at presently it only connects with Bentley, but as I speak, we are working on the integration with Autodesk. So the answer is it will. I'm confident it will. It doesn't yet.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Next question I've got here is very much like the mind map type asset information visualization, but does Enable My Team have 3D model and document view capabilities?
Okay, no, it doesn't have 3D model viewing capabilities. So we haven't. That's not something that we've put any focus on. It might be a good use case. The reason we haven't spent time on it is because there are other softwares or other technologies doing that very well. So as a new product, we are trying to do something that differentiates us. But I can see a very use case where that might be very useful. So if we can do it better, then I think we will. But no, we're not doing that yet.
Okay, I've got another question here. That's just cropped up. I'm not sure what this refers to, but it's basically asking, can we provide the standard numbers again? I think was that something in the presentation?
Yes, I can. It's a BS 1192.
Yeah.
And PAS 1192.
Yeah. One thing I will say, I'll just jump in there. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available on through the Fiatech website, YouTube in the next week or so. If anybody's interested in reviewing. Okay. Well, I've no more questions. Anybody else got any more before I close down the question panel? Other than that, I'll jump into the end of the session. A couple of announcements I've got to make. I mentioned at the beginning, with Comet and Fiatech have teamed up. We've got a conference coming up at the end of October titled Efficiency Through Digital Projects, People, Process, Technology Conference. We look at the latest R&D technologies, projects, work processes that enable the path towards digital construction. Just follow that link. Most welcome to attend. There'll be some quite a bit of innovation. Number of our members, some of the Fiatech members, Comet members, EPCs, AECs, academia, owners. Be a great conference. Continue the trend that Comet has started several years ago. Early bird registration is open till the 12th. Again, you can find out more on the Comet and the Fiatech websites. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. It's Tech Tuesday webinars are usually most well attended. Usually a lot of good comments back. Please do look out on the Fiatech website for the upcoming webinars. There's some interesting topics coming up in the next few months. I'd like to say thank you. Social media is always a good way to keep in contact. There's a few links there. Please encourage you to have a look through. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today. Thanks very much to Sandy, as I mentioned, to Fernando for helping with the compilation of the slides. And have a great day. Thank you.